Did you ever feel like you were praised for being smart? But somehow, that made life harder? Like you were carrying the weight of someone else's expectations? But no one ever taught you how to carry your own confusion. It starts early. Before you even understood what the word smart meant, someone pointed at the way you spoke, the way you remembered things, the way you asked questions too big for your age. And they smiled. Not just any smile. That proud smile. The one that told you, you're not like the others. You're special. And at first, that feels warm. A spotlight you didn't ask for. But maybe you're worthy of it. So you try to live up to it. You get good grades. You say the right things. You read books meant for older kids. You impress teachers and adults and anyone who can reflect back to you. The image you've been given, the identity you didn't choose. But now, you must protect. Because when people say you're smart, what they're really saying is, don't disappoint us. And so, your childhood becomes a performance. Not because you wanted to perform, but because no one showed you how to simply be. No one told you it was okay to be confused, to feel lost, to struggle. You learned to hide those parts. Because those parts, they didn't fit the role. And somewhere along the way, the role became your identity. But here's the quiet truth no one says aloud. Being a smart kid often means you became good at being what others needed, but never learned how to be what you needed. You learned fast, yes, but not always what mattered. You learned how to answer the question, but not how to ask for help. You learned how to sit still and listen, but not how to calm the chaos inside your own head. You learned how to solve equations, but not how to solve heartbreak. And so when real life comes, the kind of life that doesn't give you gold stars or rubrics, the kind of life that doesn't care how articulate you are, you freeze. Not because you're incapable, but because your intelligence was never meant to carry the weight of being human. That's not a skill you can read in a book. It's something you have to feel your way through. And no one prepared you for that. Because the truth is, smart kids often get praised for their minds, while slowly starving in their hearts. They don't show it. They've been trained not to. They've been told that emotion is weakness. That struggle is shameful. That if they're really as smart as everyone says, they should know how to handle this. But knowledge is not the same as knowing how to live. No one ever taught you how to fail gently, how to admit you're lost without feeling like a fraud, how to sit in uncertainty without reaching for a mask. And so you grew up, half seen, admired for your mind, but never truly met in your soul. You felt the pressure to always have the answer. So you stopped asking real questions, especially the ones that would expose your aching. You learned to make everything look easy, because you were terrified someone might see that it wasn't. You feared that if they saw you struggle, they'd take it all back. The praise, the pride, the identity. So you buried the mess, the anxiety, the fear, the moments you wanted to scream but smiled instead, the nights you cried yourself into silence, because you didn't want to be a disappointment. That's the tragedy no one talks about. When you're the smart one, people forget you're still a child, still human, still breakable. They put you on a pedestal, and forget pedestals are just prisons with better lighting. And you just wanted to belong. You wanted love that wasn't conditional on achievement. You wanted attention that wasn't performance-based. You wanted to be seen for more than just your grades, your vocabulary, your potential. You wanted to be held. Not because you were exceptional, but because you were exhausted. But no one saw that. Not because they didn't care, but because they didn't know how to look beyond the label. They saw the star student, not the scared child. They saw the sharp answers, not the aching questions. They saw the light in your eyes, but not the loneliness behind it. So you kept going. You kept performing. You kept pretending. You kept collecting achievements, like armor, thinking maybe if you just proved yourself enough, the pain would finally disappear. But here's the thing about unacknowledged pain. It doesn't go away. It goes inward. It becomes self-doubt, imposter syndrome, anxiety, perfectionism, avoidance. And maybe you've felt it lately. That numbness, that quiet dread before every new challenge, that voice in your head that whispers, if you fail this time, they'll see you were never that smart to begin with. It's cruel, isn't it? That the same label that once made you feel special, now makes you feel trapped? But hear me when I say this. There is nothing wrong with your mind. But there's a wound in your heart that's been ignored for too long. A wound that says your worth is tied to performance. That love must be earned. That struggle is a flaw. That rest is lazy. That failure is fatal. But it's not. It never was. You were never supposed to be perfect. You were supposed to be real. And real means breaking sometimes. It means crying in the dark. It means feeling like a mess. And still being worthy of love. It means unlearning the idea that your value comes from what you do. And remembering that it comes from who you are. Underneath it all, you were born enough. Before the praise. Before the pressure. Before the performance. And maybe no one told you this before. But let me say it now. You don't have to keep proving yourself to deserve peace. You don't have to keep achieving to be worthy of rest. You don't have to keep pretending to be okay. Just to protect someone else's idea of who you are. You can let go now. You can breathe. You can stop. And in that quiet, in that brave stillness, you might just hear something you haven't heard in years. Your own voice. The one beneath the roles. The one beneath the labels. The one that was silenced so long ago in the name of being smart. Let it speak again. Let it tremble. Let it cry. Let it laugh in ways that don't make sense. Let it wander. Let it not know. That's where the real life begins. Not in being right. Not in being praised. Not in being perfect. But in being whole. And you are allowed to be whole. Even if that wholeness includes sadness. Even if it includes failure. Even if it means not being what everyone expected. You don't have to be impressive. You just have to be you. And if that feels like a terrifying beginning, good. That means you're finally stepping off the stage and onto solid ground. If this resonated, you're not alone. Let me know what part felt real to you. You might be wondering, if I'm not the smart one anymore, if I stop trying to live up to that, then who am I? That's the quiet identity crisis no one prepared you for. Not the kind that comes with dramatic breakdowns, but the kind that seeps in slowly, like a fog. Because when your whole life has been built on being exceptional, what happens when you feel average? When life doesn't reward your insights with applause? When no one cares how articulate you sound, only whether you show up, stay grounded, and keep going? It's disorienting. It's not that you aren't intelligent. It's that life asks for something else entirely. Life asks for resilience, for presence, for emotional endurance, for the ability to say, I don't know, and still move forward. And those aren't things you were praised for growing up. They were never on the test. But now, they are the test. And it's okay if you're struggling to adapt. It doesn't mean you're broken. It means your inner world is evolving, painfully. Maybe, but truthfully. Because here's what they don't tell you about being gifted. It can become a cage. Not because the mind is the problem, but because you were never taught to live in your body. In your feelings. In your limits. You were taught to fly. But no one taught you how to land. So you stayed in your head. Overthinking. Overanalyzing. Overcompensating. Trying to solve life like a puzzle instead of feeling it like a wave. And now that wave is here. Adult life doesn't want your essays. It wants your presence. It wants your grit. It wants your tenderness. And that's hard, I know. Especially when you were raised to believe that being vulnerable meant being exposed. That showing weakness meant you were no longer worthy of the pedestal. But the truth is, that pedestal was never real. It was built from other people's projections. And now, you're allowed to step down. Not to shrink. Not to disappear. But to begin again. To rewrite the story. As someone no longer driven by fear of failure. But by a quiet yearning to be honest. Honest with yourself. You're tired. Not lazy, tired. You're overwhelmed. Not ungrateful, overwhelmed. You're healing. Not broken, healing. Let that be okay. Let it all be okay. You're allowed to say, I don't want to be exceptional. I want to be at peace. You're allowed to say, I don't need to impress anyone. I just want to feel like I belong. You're allowed to say, I don't want to be a constant achiever. I want to be fully alive. And that's not failure. That's maturity. That's growth. That's courage. The kind of courage that comes not from knowing all the answers, but from finally being willing to sit in the questions. Because that's where your real intelligence lives. Not in how fast you can think, but in how deeply you can feel. Not in how many facts you remember, but in how many wounds you can gently hold. Not in how well you can hide, but in how bravely you can show up. And you don't have to show up perfectly. Just show up honestly. That's where the healing begins. Not in rewriting your past, but in reclaiming the parts of you that were never given permission to be seen. The messy parts, the unsure parts, the anxious, quiet, overwhelmed, grieving parts. They are not your shame. They are your humanity, and you deserve to carry that without apology. You deserve to rest, to ask for help, to cry without needing to explain, to fall apart and still be held. Maybe no one did that for you when you were young. Maybe the praise felt louder than the love. Maybe you were celebrated, but never comforted. But that doesn't have to be the end of the story. You can become the comfort now. You can become the safety you never had. You can learn to speak to yourself in a voice that doesn't demand, but understands. A voice that says, you're allowed to stop trying so hard. You're allowed to be confused. You're allowed to feel everything, even the things you don't understand. Because this isn't about abandoning your intelligence. It's about expanding it. It's about growing into a version of you that is just as wise in your heart as you are in your mind. That's the real journey now. Not towards more success, but towards more softness. Not towards more applause, but towards more authenticity. And maybe, just maybe, you'll discover that what you thought was your weakness was actually the doorway back to yourself. The self that was never defined by output. The self that was never created to perform. The self that was always there, quietly waiting for you to come home. If this resonated, you're not alone. Let me know what part felt real to you. And now, maybe you're starting to realize why real life feels so heavy. Not because you're weak, but because you've been carrying a script that was never yours to begin with. You were taught to be strong in all the wrong ways. Strong by suppressing. Strong by achieving. Strong by pretending. But no one taught you the strength of being seen in your rawness. No one told you that true strength is quiet. That it lives in your ability to stay soft in a hard world. So now, as an adult, you move through life with a subtle ache. You do well. People say you're successful. But it doesn't feel like success. It feels like survival. You show up to work, and you know how to impress. You know how to meet deadlines, anticipate needs, exceed expectations. But afterward, you're drained in a way no one sees. Because you're not working from joy. You're working from fear. Fear of falling behind. Fear of not being good enough. Fear that if you stop performing, you'll disappear. In friendships, you offer insight. You listen deeply. You hold space for others. But when it's your turn to speak, you hesitate. Because being smart taught you how to read people, but not how to let them read you. And in love, you might find yourself overthinking, overgiving, or pulling away when things get too intimate. Because the old wound still whispers. If they see the real you, the messy, scared, unsure you, they'll leave. So you hide behind intellect, behind wit, behind emotional self-sufficiency. But loneliness still finds you. Because deep down, what you long for isn't to be impressive. It's to be understood. You want someone to see past the polished words. To sit with you when you're quiet. To say, you don't have to explain. I'm here. And maybe the most painful part is that you don't know how to offer that to yourself yet. Because your inner voice still sounds like an anxious teacher. Still grading you. Still measuring. Still expecting more. But you can change that voice. You can speak to yourself like someone who knows what it feels like to never feel like enough. You can hold space for your own confusion. You can say, it's okay not to have it all together. And mean it. That's not regression. That's not failure. That's reparenting. That's the part of healing no one claps for, no one posts about, no one teaches in school. It's the slow, sacred work of coming back to yourself. Unlearning the noise. Softening the armor. Letting yourself breathe again. And yes, it's scary. Because when your whole identity has been built on being the smart one, letting go of that role can feel like death. But it's not death. It's rebirth. The death of the performance. So that the person can finally emerge. The person who's tired of carrying the gold stars and just wants to carry their own heart. The person who knows that being brilliant means nothing if you don't feel safe inside your own mind. The person who isn't afraid to say, "I want something gentler now." So let this be your permission slip. To stop hustling for worth. To stop living for praise. To stop believing that you have to earn rest. You were never meant to be a machine. You were never meant to be the answer to someone else's hopes. You were meant to live, to feel, to stumble, to heal, and slowly, to remember that you are lovable, even in the moments you feel unremarkable, especially in those moments. Because love, real love, doesn't ask you to be impressive. It asks you to be here, present, honest, alive. So if you've been waiting for the moment to lay down the mask, this is it. Let yourself grieve what you never got. Let yourself rest without guilt. Let yourself be human. You've already done enough. Now it's time to be enough. Not someday, not after one more accomplishment, but right now, exactly as you are. If this resonated, you're not alone. Let me know what part felt real to you.